Hello everybody, it's Elizabeth Schnoch here, Director for Institute for the Study of Man, and once again we bring you a next episode in our series of true education versus academic schooling. And just briefly to summarize what we mean by that is that all of us have had academic schooling that has allowed us to achieve what we have in our lives, to get to where we've got the jobs, whatever we've trained in, whatever we've studied in, whatever it is that we may have unfolded in our lives. It's all been done on the basis of academic schooling. But very seldom, if anywhere, are we given the tools to actually live life, what we call true education. So in this series, what we do is we talk about the practical tools that we need to traverse our everyday life, and more often than not, the tools that we share with you, that I give you on these vlogs, are things that you're doing in your life anyway, and you've been through a step-by-step process to tackle something in your life, or challenge, whatever it may be, and then often we think, well, that was just a fluke, it was just a one-off thing that you managed to achieve, but not so. You've been through a step-by-step process to get there, and once you know what that step-by-step process is, it looks pretty obvious afterwards. But once you've actually once you know what the step-by-step process is, then if you're not actually getting to where you want to in your life, then it's easy to backtrack and just say, okay, which is the step that I missed out on. So in previous episodes and previous vlogs, we've covered things like the difference between emotions and feelings, and we've looked at all the different emotions, from fear to anger to melancholy to joy. And in this vlog, what I would like to cover today are what we would call the habits of a lifetime. All of us have habits. Every single one of us on this planet have habits. And what we are not taught is that those habits are the habits of a lifetime. And it's not like we can just change them overnight. They take hard work. But once we appreciate what they are, then we can actually start to not do them. And of course, what that takes is dedication and commitment to yourself, because changing habits is not easy, and we'll have a look at why. A lot of this stemmed out of curiosity that I had for many years. There would be people in my life, for example, who had addictive behaviors of some kind or another. Growing up, it was more tending to be alcoholics, and then later on it became drugs, and then there were sex addicts, and then the food addicts, all sorts of addicts. But what always left me feeling rather curious and puzzled is why somebody would need to be in recovery for 25 years, for example. And I employed somebody once to put my courses together, and he'd come straight out of a rehab clinic. Was quite surprised that I gave him the job, and I said to him, gee whiz, when I'm in a spot of bother, I'd like somebody who's it's not an angel that's going to help me at that particular point in time. It's going to be somebody who's actually been there in the trenches, who's actually had to tackle things. So yeah, warriors don't make good angels, and angels don't necessarily make good warriors. And I had a lot of conversations with him, because at his meetings that he was going to every evening for 90 days, there would be people, there'd be 20 years, 25, 30 years. And I could never really understand why, yes, you needed to go to these meetings. I thought it was fantastic, but I just thought that they were a way of getting you from one side of the river to the other, from one bank to the other, and then you could actually work on your own. Why would people need to keep on going to these meetings for the length of time that they did? And a couple of years ago, and in the last couple of years, many times I've actually been listening to a professor from the States, who is a neuro brain and cognitive scientist. And she was the one who introduced me to the way that the brain behaves badly. The way that she describes it in my words, the way that I've understood it. If we go back to my analogy of recovery meetings being to take you from one side of the river to the other, she also uses the analogy of a riverbed, and she talks about how our habits actually get laid down. There are tracks in our neural pathways that get laid down each time we actually, every time there's a behavior that we enact. And the more frequently we enact that behavior, the deeper those tracks get. And she says eventually we've got like a riverbed there, and the more that we exercise those habits, the more that water is flowing freely in that river, the deeper the riverbed gets. And then she says one day we stop doing that habit, whatever that may be. It sounds miraculous to me that it can be one day. You stop doing that habit, and slowly but surely that riverbed starts to dry up, until once you've actually tackled that habit and you're no longer doing it, you're now left with a dry riverbed, and maybe next to it you've actually started to create a new riverbed with that new habit of yours. But what she shared is that riverbed, the original one, is always there. And it is always there, and it may get a few leaves and branches and weeds and all sorts of things, and may become overgrown, but nonetheless it may get camouflaged in some way. It is still there waiting for one day when you default on that habit, you pick it up again, and then very quickly that riverbed is full again and we're back to our old behaviors. So that was what really fascinated me, was that we always have that potential to go back to that previous behavior. It's always there. It's always lying in wait there for us. Hence the analogy of the riverbed. And so this brings us back to the other habits of a lifetime, not necessarily addictive behavior, although a habit in itself it could be addictive, couldn't it? And it brings me back to where these habits of a lifetime come from in the first place. Because if you think about it, little children, little babies, we arrive on the planet, we don't have an instruction booklet with us. We're a blank slate, and we have parents. Some of us are very lucky to have parents for a while, and then we don't have parents. And others maybe don't see their parents at all. But there will always be adults in your life. And because we are this blank slate and we don't know how to behave on this planet, we're going to be looking up around at whatever adults there are in our company, whichever people there are in our world. And we're going to see their behavior, and we think, well, this is the way we operate on this planet. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. And so we copy-paste the behavior of all the people around us. And so the habits are formed. And they're formed from whichever the habits are that we are seeing in the adults around us, and we copy them. And a child doesn't have that rational ability to actually check out what's a good habit and a bad habit at that particular point in time. That comes later on in life. So those formative years are so crucial to all we adults who are around little babies and little children, to be aware, to be cognizant of our own habits and the fact that the people around us are going to be copying them. So let's take one, for example. I'll give you a couple of examples, because it came out this morning actually with a friend of mine who was saying to me that his wife had been pointing out to him that he's such a control freak in some ways. He's always controlling. And I just grinned at him and I said, gosh, isn't it exhausting trying to rule the universe? If you try to rule the universe, try to control the universe, it's exhausting, isn't it? And he burst out laughing. And it just got me thinking, because one of the habits, if you can actually tackle this habit and turn it around, you can make an absolute sea change in your life overnight. It's that powerful. And that is the habit of complaining. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. So what is complaining? Complaining is an attempt at control. That's what it is. It's an attempt at control. When we complain, we have this brief relief. Well, we have relief, don't we? You complain about something, you get it out of your system, you may release the pressure, whatever it is, but it brings relief. But that relief is temporary. Because when we are complaining, what we are actually saying is that we do not accept what is. So complaining is always a non-acceptance of what is. And what is. It's just not going to go away. If somebody is taking a 50-pound hammer and hammering on your toe and you say, it's not happening, you're going to get a very sore toe indeed. So when we don't accept what is happening around us, we will tend to complain, and that way we feel like we're in control of it. We're in control of it. So just as a simple exercise, start watching yourself, start observing yourself, become curious about the complaining and see where it takes you. And of course, the complaining is another way to connect with people, isn't it? You head off to the water machine, you can complain about your boss, and you can complain about the world, and you complain about the politics. And with politics, we've always got lots to complain about. And we think we're now controlling the world instead of the politicians. And of course, if there's something going on in your personal life, in your personal relationships, or with your boss, or whatever it may be, finding somebody to complain to who agrees with you is just the best thing. You've now found yourself a partner in crime, and if you can find quite a few of you together, well, then you've got a huge big party of criminals all complaining together, and you can all feel better and have a lovely evening out, and off you go. Nothing's changed because you haven't changed what is. So it's a temporary relief. And is that really true connection? Because see what happens when we start complaining about something or somebody, it quickly turns to gossiping. And gossiping, of course, is just another form of complaining. But it gives us what we feel is like temporary control. So beautiful. That's example number 1. And see if we can actually tackle that habit. It is a habit of a lifetime, because remember, if we had a mommy, a daddy, an auntie, an uncle, a teacher, a bigger brother, a sister, whatever it may be, who were always complaining, well, we would look up and we would say, gosh, you know, you're a big person in this world, and this is the way that life works, so I'm going to copy you. And next thing we find ourselves complaining, and we wonder why. And another learned habit, as I should probably call them all learned habits, is the habit of helplessness. Our social conditioning is such that if you present yourself as being helpless in some way or another, it's a sign of being humble. If you really look at it on the contrary, it's the opposite. It's arrogant in a way, and I'll share why why I see it that way. If I was about to say, if I start acting helpless, now therein I've already given away a vital clue. If I'm acting helpless, what I'm actually doing is I'm manipulating you into helping me. So when I play this game of helplessness, I'm actually wanting to manipulate the people around me to start shouldering my responsibility. I'm trying to shirk my responsibility so that I can play helpless. Somebody else will come and take over. And there's always somebody who's going to have a helping hand. There's always somebody who wants to prove something to themselves. I have got many t-shirts of that one, past master at helping left, right, and center. Hugely arrogant if I think of it now, because my message that I'm putting out to somebody is, oh, you poor thing, you are helpless. You cannot handle your challenges, but look at me, I'll come along and I'll do them for you. Hugely arrogant. So watch out for when you play helpless. Look at what it is. What is it that you would like somebody else to take the responsibility for, rather than you taking it? Because for me, it comes down to something quite simple but very profound. Because if I'm in my little boat, in my little ocean, and I'm doing whatever I'm doing, those waves are coming no matter what I do. Small waves, big waves, tsunamis. And it's not for somebody else to be surfing those waves if I'm wanting to learn from them. If that is my purpose in being here, is to learn. If I allow somebody else to come along and ask them to surf that wave for me, they're going to grow bigger and better and become lovelier people, and I'm still going to be stuck, and I'm probably going to be, like when I'm complaining, I'm going to remain in victim mode, because I'm saying these challenges are too big for me. Please, would you come and do them for me? And I just have to believe that we never get given anything that we cannot handle. We just never will be given anything we cannot handle, and therefore we must always be provided with everything practically that we need to tackle them. So watch out with habits. I love this little saying that somebody left me, and it says that in an emergency, old habits are always a most welcome refuge, even if we normally hate them. So even if we hate them, we will put on our old habits, just like that old t-shirt, running t-shirt, that old jacket, the one that's comfortable, and we will wear them, even if they're not giving us the results that we want. So watch out. Try the complaining one. It's brilliant. You'll have to remind yourself again and again, but maybe get some people to do it with you, and then see how much fun you can have by not doing that habit of complaining or even being helpless. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.